Let's discuss Ielts reading passage 3. Is the era of artificial speech translation upon us? What does it mean? It means that if I record something in Urdu, I can change it into Spanish, Germany, or any other language. This is going to be in my own voice. Has the time come when we have artificial speech translation? Like you record something in English and then it is automatically translated into Japanese, Chinese, or any other language. Once the stuff of science fiction technology that enables people to talk using different languages is now here, but how effective is it? It means we will also discuss merits and demerits, or advantages and disadvantages of artificial speech translation. Luckily, passage is not labeled as A, B, C, and D. When passage is not labeled, it means that type B questions are not given. Type B questions are of two types: which para contains the following information and match the headings. So we will have type A questions. We can start from any type of question because all questions are in order. First of all, let's have a look at multiple choice question. Choose the correct letter. Then we'll discuss complete each sentence with the correct ending A to F. And at the end, we will discuss yes, no, not given. So let's start from question number 27. While reading multiple choice question, you must keep in mind, read the question, but do not read the options. Otherwise, you'll get confused. So question number 27, what does the reader learn about the conversation in the first paragraph? So let's read first passage. Let's start from the very first. Noise, Alex Webel tells me, is one of the major challenges that artificial speech translation has to meet. A device may be able to recognize speech in laboratory or a meeting room, but will struggle to cope with the kind of background noise I can hear in my office surrounding Professor Webel as he speaks to me from Kyoto Station in Japan. I'm struggling to follow him in English on a scratchy line that reminds me we are nearly 10,000 kilometers apart, and that distance is still an obstacle to communication even if you are speaking the same language. This is your answer. Is still an obstacle to communication if you are speaking in the same language. We haven't reached the future yet. If we had, Webel would have been able to speak more comfortably in his native German, and I would have been able to hear his words in English. Let's look at the options. Option A, the speakers are communicating in different languages. This is understood. Read the question. He asks in question, what does the reader learn? We don't learn that speakers are communicating in different languages. It is understood. So this is not the option. B, neither of the speakers is familiar with their environment. Here is no mention of environment. So this is not the option. C, the topic of conversation is difficult for both speakers. No, this is not the option. D, aspects of the conversation are challenging for both speakers. For aspects, he used the word languages in the passage. So we have seen that the languages of the conversation are challenging for both speakers. So option will be D. D will be correct option. Question number 28. What assists the electronic translator during the lectures at Karlsruhe Institute of Technology? First, let's find the word Karlsruhe Institute in the very next passage on the first page. At Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, where he is professor of computer science, Webel and his colleagues already give lectures in German that their students can follow in English via an electronic translator. The system generates text that students can read on their laptops or phones. So that process is somewhat similar to subtitling. It helps that lecturers speak clearly, do not have to compete with background chatter, and say much the same thing each year. Let's read the options. The repeated content of lectures. First, look at the B. The students' reading skills. He has not mentioned any skill. C. The languages used. No. D. The lecture's technical ability. He doesn't mention any technical ability of the lectures. So our option will be A. The repeated content of lectures. If you look at the last line, and say much the same thing each year. This is our answer. So A is the right option. Question number 29. We don't need to read the passage that we have already read because these are ordered questions. The remaining question will be in the upcoming passages. When referring to Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, the writer suggests that. Let's find the word Hitchhiker's Galaxy. It's given in passage 3. The idea of artificial speech translation has been around for a long time. Douglas Adams' science fiction novel, The Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy, published in 1979, featured a life form called the Babel fish, which when placed in the air enabled a listener to understand any language in the universe. A Babel fish, it was a kind of airbird. When placed in the air, it can translate any language. It enables listener to understand any language. A. The Babel fish was considered undesirable at that time. No, he doesn't mention anything regarding undesirable. B. This book was not seriously intending to predict the future. There is no mention of future. C. Artificial speech translation was not a surprising development. Yes, because if you read, this was not surprising because it was already mentioned. So C is the right option. D. Some speech translation technology are better than other. Here is no comparison of different technologies. He just speaks of the Babel fish and there is one technology. Number 30. What does the writer say about sharing earpieces? Page 2, passage 1. For a conversation, both speakers need to have devices called pilots, translator earpieces, in their ears. We find that there is a barrier with sharing one of the earphones with a stranger, says Okwa. That can't have been totally unexpected. If we look at the passage, he says we find that there is a barrier with sharing earphones. We find that there is a barrier with sharing one of the earphones with a stranger. The question, he says, what does the writer say about sharing earpieces? It is something people will get used to doing. No, the reluctance to do this is understandable. Yes, barrier with sharing represents the reluctance. So B will be our right answer. The equipment will be unnecessary in the future. No, he doesn't mention the future of this device. D is something. It is something few people need to worry about. No, there is no need to worry. Question 31 to 34. Complete each sentence with the correct ending A to F below. Write correct letters A to F in boxes 31 to 34 on your answer sheet. 31, 32, 33, 34. We have to find the answers from the table in which A to F options are given. 31. Speech translation methods are developing fast in Japan. Let's find the word Japan. Yes, it's given in the second passage, page 2. Weibel highlights the significance of certain Asian nations, nothing that voice translation has really taken off in countries such as Japan, with range of systems. There is still a long way to go, though. So let's look at the option A, but there are concerns about this. There is no concern about speech translation method developing fast in Japan, as systems do not need to conform to standard practices. No mention of practices, but they are far from perfect. Yes, here he mentions there is still a long way to go. So it means they are far from perfect. So our answer will be C. We write C in front of 31st. 32. TV interviews that use translation voiceover methods are successful. TV interviews that use translation voiceover methods are successful. Let's look at TV translator. Yes, in the same passage, translation system needs to be simultaneous, like translator's voice speaking over the foreign politician being interviewed on the TV, rather than in sections that oblige speakers to pause after very few remarks and wait for the translation to be delivered. It needs to work offline for situations where internet access isn't possible, and to address apprehensions about the amount of private speech data accumulating in the cloud, having been sent to servers for processing. Let's look at the options. Let's read the remaining options. There are concerns about this? No. As systems do not need to confirm, there is no mention of standard practices. Charlie has been chosen. D. Despite the noise issue? No, because translation is immediate. If you read the passage, it says, in sections that oblige speaker to pause after every few remarks and wait for the translation to be delivered. So, because translation is immediate. 33. Future translation systems should address people appropriately. Future translation system should address people appropriately. We'll cross C and E. We are left with A, B, D, and F. Let's find the word future translation. Yes, it's given in the next passage. Systems not only need to cope with physical challenges such as noise, they will also need to be socially aware by addressing people in the right way. Some cultural traditions demand solemn respect for academic status. For example, it is only polite to respect this. Etiquette sensitive artificial translator could relieve people of the need to know these differing cultural norms. Yes, F will be the right option, and have an awareness of good manners. Cultural norms mean good manners. So future translation system should address people appropriately and have an awareness of good manners. We will write F in front of 33. Let's move on to question number 34. Users may be able to maintain their local customs. Let's read same passage. At the same time, they might help to preserve local customs. Second last line, slowing the spread of habits associated with international English, such as its readiness to get on first name terms. We are left with A, B, and D. We will read only these options. A, but there are concerns about this. No, as systems do not need to conform to standard practices. This is our option B. 34, we will write B in front of 34, because users may be able to maintain their local customs as systems do not need to conform to standard practices. He also mentions in this passage that at the same time might help to preserve local customs, slowing the spread of habits associated with international English, such as readiness to get over first name terms. Let's move on to question number 35 to 40. Yes, no, not given. If the statement agrees with the views of the writer, we will write yes. If the statement contradicts the views of the writer, we will write no. And if it is impossible to say what the writer thinks about this, we will write not given. Question number 35. Language translation systems will be seen as very useful throughout the academic and professional worlds. Academic and professional worlds mean professors, universities, colleges, etc. Let's find the word in the passage. Yes, it's given in second last passage. Professors and other professionals will not outsource language awareness to software, though. This is our answer. In the statement, he says, language translation system will be seen as very useful throughout the academic and professional worlds. But in the passage, he says, professor and other professionals will not outsource language awareness to software. Information contradicts which is given in the passage. So we will write no in front of 35. 36. The overall value of automated translation to family life is yet to be shown. Is yet to be shown. Let's find the word family. Yes, it's given in the same passage. Third line, it will actually add value to whether it will help people conduct their family lives or relationships is open to question. Though one noteworthy possibility is that it could overcome the language barriers that often arise between generations after migration, leaving children and their grandparents without a shared language. Let's read the overall value of automated translation to family life is yet to be shown. And here he mentions that is open to questions. Both informations are same. So it means the same information means we will write yes. Open to question means is yet to be shown. Question number 37. Automated translation could make life more difficult for immigrant families. Let's find the word immigrant families. Same passage, second last line. It could overcome the language barriers that often arise between generations after migration, leaving children and their grandparents without a shared language. Automated translation could make life more difficult for immigrant families. And here he says, it could overcome the language barriers. The information in the passage and in the question contradicts. In the question he says, make life more difficult for immigrant families. And in this says it could overcome the language barrier. So we will write no. Question number 38. Visual aspects of language translation are being considered by scientists. Visual aspects of language, where it is given in the last passage. For very first line, whatever uses it is put to, though it will never be as good as the real thing. Even if voice morphing technology simulates the speaker's voice, their lip movements won't match and they will look like they are in dubbed movie. The contrast will underline the value of shared language and the value of the learning them. He says visual aspects of language translation are being considered by scientists, but here there is no mention that they are considering visual aspects. Information is given, but information is not relevant to the question which is being asked in the exercise. So it is impossible to say what writer thinks about the given information. We write not given. So 38 will be not given. 39. International scientists have found English easier to translate into other languages than Latin. Let's find the information whether he makes a comparison or not. If he will make a comparison, then answer will be yes. And if he doesn't make a comparison, then answer will be no. And if there is no mention of the information, then answer will be not given. 39. The contrast will underline the value of shared language and the value of learning them. Sharing a language can promote a sense of belonging and community, as with the international scientists who use English as a lingua franca. Lingua franca means global language, where their predecessor used Latin. So here is no comparison, no mention of the information that is being asked in the question. So we will write not given. 39. Last question, 40. As far as language is concerned, there is a difference between people's social and practical needs. Last passage, third last line. Though the practical need of a common language will diminish, the social value of sharing one will persist. And software will never be a substitute. And software will never be a substitute for the subtle but vital understanding that comes with knowledge of a language. Though the practical need for a common language will diminish. In the question he asks, as far as language is concerned, there is difference between people's social and practical needs. And here it says, will diminish and social value of sharing one will persist. So the difference will persist. We will write yes in front of 40. This is the end of this activity.